What's going on, Cancer? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot and Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? You feeling upbeat? The moon is in Sagittarius, and I always talk about like the moon in Sag is like this adventurer energy, going out for conquest here. But there's an energy that's coming up in your when we're going to get into the I Ching that it's when you're returning from an adventure, and especially one where maybe things didn't go so well, is where does the energy move after that? How do you recuperate from that and adjust from that and go back out there? Just I'm just thinking when we all go through those defeated sort of moments there, and it's like how to bring that energy back to life again with Sagittarius. I think there's something there that we're going to explore here today. But before we get into that, if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon. Who doesn't love that? And this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Jupiter, wherever. This one's for you. And I do tarot cards, friends. Based on that lovely luminary, the good old moon. Let me tell you, I was sitting here last night, and I saw this kind of golden sliver kind of rise up, and I thought there was like a reflection from like the oven light, and then I go do something, and I come back, and it was because I was waiting for the moon to rise, and then I'm looking like, I think that's the moon. And man, it was glorious. Watching the moon rise was just, watching the sun and the moon, just watching the luminaries rise is just something else. It really just, get out there. Look at the sky, because the moon's doing a lot. The sky is doing a lot. And I'll talk about what sign the moon's in, what phase it's in, when it's going void. Of course, it's all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope, Cancer. Let's jump into it. Why postpone this? Because the energy's feeling great. I love when the moon's in Sag. This is always a great time for my chart. Energy's feeling lively. Speaking of some lively energy, depending on when you're watching this, Happy Mars Day. Mars is associated with Tuesdays. I actually just finished up my workout. And you know what? I do find just Mars days are really great for doing any sort of just like physical activity that requires maybe you're moving, maybe you just want to work out, go for a walk, just being active. I think just getting out there, feeling alive. Mars days are great for that. But I also think too, even just like, because Mars, there's a passionate side of Mars, one that Mars wants us to fulfill our desires and things. So again, doing things that really gets the blood pumping, your passion projects, those things that just get you, yeah, just feeling energized. I think those are great ways of working with Mars. Check out when Mars is in the sky. That's a sight. But also, what I like to do on these days is just think about my relationship with Mars. Where's Mars transiting? Mars is about, depending on when you're watching this, Mars is going to be moving into Leo soon, actually on Venus Day. So that's going to be exciting, getting out of Cancer, whipping, stirring up trouble. So that's going to be invigorating. So this could be a great time to be thinking about where do you have Leo in your chart? Where's Mars going to be activating? That's going to be something to come. Mars is going to be coming back to my first house. I'll be coming up on a new Mars return, probably probably the following month. But yeah, just some things to think about there. That's one ways that I also like working with working with Mars. Yeah, pay attention to transits too, especially if you got a day chart, and if you got a night chart too, because Mars you can work more constructively in a. I find it's easier to work a bit Mars in a night chart than it is in a day chart. So just something to pay attention to, or something to explore. Now let's get into the lunar shenanigans. Because on the 15th of April, the moon is going to enter into Sagittarius at about 7:38 p.m., and that's going to be Pacific time. And we're in a waning gibbous phase. I find that this is an interesting phase, I think, for Sagittarius to come up, because the waning gibbous is where we've gotten awareness from that full moon that happened not too long ago, and we're really just kind of integrating this stuff. We're kind of sharing the things that we've learned, maybe with others, maybe just like really just kind of that inward sort of just like integration that's happening when we get into the waning phase. It's just like, okay, I tried this thing. Now, how can I readjust my expectations, whatever you were working on during this thing going forward? What does that look like for you? And then when you just talk about Sagittarius just in general, Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign. They're young in nature, or active, and they're ruled by Big Papa, Jupiter. So there's already this expansiveness with Sagittarius. It's seeking for something more, something bigger, but it's the it's the movable fire of Sagittarius that I think is what's so exciting. That will is just like it's just extra active. It's different than how you have that initiatory with Aries, or even that sustainability with Leo. With Sag, it's just like, yeah, the energy is just like it's like cooking. It's just wanting to explore, wanting to spread, wanting to catch something new, something different. You know, I imagine Sagittarius is kind of like a shooting star, kind of in a sense. I think that energy is. There's something mystical really about that. And I think that the moon here really does allow us to, again, think about what has, maybe some of the challenges that even had came up during this lunar cycle. And what does that mean going forward? We may have felt a lot of that stuff and, kind of process that in Scorpio. So, yeah, so what does that mean? What can this, because we don't always stay defeated forever. We lick our wounds and then we get back out there, stronger, fresher than ever. And that's what I think this moon is inviting us to do, to get refreshed, to get re-energized. If that's something where you've noticed that the energies maybe kind of dipped a little bit. So that could be just some ways to work with this moon in Sagittarius there. And pay attention too if you happen to have, get familiar with your chart. The lunar transits can move very fast, but you don't have to necessarily keep them track of when it's specifically aspecting planets. Just getting an idea of like, all right, maybe if you have like a lot of mutable placements, such as Gemini, Virgo, Sag, or Pisces. If you got a lot of those placements, this might be an active one for you. Might be some tension points there, a lot of movement going on. Whereas, unlike, if you got someone like me where you got a lot of fire placements, this is a lot of movement. Things are going. So it's just kind of interesting to pay attention to what feeling. You know what? I will say, even with that trine energy, it's not always like smooth. Sometimes Sag runs hot. And I think that is something, well, not sometimes. I know a lot of Sag. Often they run hot, but in the best possible way. But I do think that there is something there to explore with Sag, that there is a quickness to heat. But just as quick as it can increase, it can, decrease as well. But so that's something I think to pay attention to well. And I think that's going to kind of flow interestingly into our general energy of the day. So let's go ahead and get into that. Because you've got hexagram 6, which is the court, which is very interesting. This is heaven over water. And your changing line was line 2. So if you want to check that out and meditate on that line a little bit further over these next couple of days, there's a link in the description box that has that, and you can go into that more. Just find or look into other different resources that may resonate with you as well. I'm actually working with the book. It's the I Ching. It's I Ching the Oracle by Kirsten Huang. So that's something to consider. But yeah, we're going to be focusing on line 2 today, which is a very interesting one. And it speaks about having lost in court, he returned and fled. The 300 households of his town were thus spared harm. And this to me is one, I definitely got an energy of like a picking and choosing your battles. One, thinking about, is this the hill that's worth dying on? That's just one thing that came through there. Because I really think that when it talks about having lost in court, it can seem like, it gives me this image of, that things aren't looking great if we were to push this situation forward. If you've already lost, trying to come back, like when you've lost and you're like, you know what, I'm just thinking about like when we come up with excuses like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep that day, I didn't eat, I didn't blah, 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 and it just kind of looks bad. And I think that this here is like, let's just spare ourselves that energy, of causing more harm than good. Because that's not just going to affect you, it's going to affect those around you too. Just something about the energy just feels frazzled, can feel frustrated in this. And you know what? This may actually have to deal with some sort of court case. And, maybe there's some sort of like custody thing that's going on. And of course that can get heated, or maybe there's some sort of divorce thing, or maybe there's any sort of legal things. Those aren't great. And I would be mindful if you have noticed just a lot of just heat has been building up, and because again, that's a lot of energy to hold on to when you're dealing with these things. Just being mindful of how that may be, how that fire may be spreading, because that is something with Sagittarius. When it is on one, I think that Sag can do a lot of harm very quickly. It spreads like a wildfire, and I think, and that, of course, that's with just any kind of fire sign or kind of fire energy there. So I just think that that's something to just kind of pay or just pay attention to. But even too, if this is not you, if this is maybe if you're dealing with someone who's maybe in a situation like this, like allowing them to just kind of retreat for a little bit, to just let them be in their energy right now, to kind of process what's going on. Because I'm thinking about the heavens. You've gotten some sort of divine revelation, some sort of insight has come through, and now the waters were feeling some type of way about it. I'm thinking about just like the hexagrams there. So yeah, this is just something to think about. I'm thinking this gives me definitely like a kind of like a Five of Swords energy, maybe even like a Five of Cups, just the fives in the tarot, where we're reaching like conflict and strife and things. And it's like, how can we move this energy more constructive? It's like, okay, I lost this thing. Like this didn't turn out how I expected to. Like I said at the beginning, the waning phases is like the kind of licking your wounds time if things haven't gone as expected, and just a regrouping again. Because in that case, when we're in a reactive state, we just do more harm. At the end, it just doesn't seem to. That's the energy or the feeling that I'm getting from this hexagram here. So just something I think depending to pay attention to. We'll definitely get more of that as we get into the tarot as well. But let's go ahead and jump into that. But before we do, just so you're all aware, a couple things. These readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. But I'm also going to talk about things as far as like topics such as like finances, medical, law, relationships, things like that. But this is by no means medical advice or any sort of like professional advice. Definitely, I'm all about reaching out to those who can help you with those things. This is just more to get some kind of awareness of those situations. So just something to pay attention to. But let's go ahead and get into this, because I'm going to be pulling 6 cards here, and they're going to each card is going to cover a different theme, and I'm going to get a clarifier for card 2, considering that was your changing line. So let's jump into this and get this first card, which is going to deal with any sort of like short-term money matters or anything along those lines. Let's see what's happening with the finances. Interesting. So you have the Page of Swords here. Now, this to me is giving an energy of, because the Page of Swords can be, this is one of my combative cards. The Page and the Knight of Swords in particular, those two can really have their words land heavy. And I think especially with the Page of Swords, this is where the thoughts can really materialize. So I think that there's something here about just like when it comes to money matters, this would be where if you've lost a case, let's say if this is just like, I'm just doing like a custody case, for example, spending more on a thing may just end up just depleting more of your finances than it does actually fixing the problem. Thinking that you can like maybe buy someone out or something along those lines. I'm not quite, that's something to pay attention to there, but I would just be mindful of any sort of like reactive spending at this time with the Page of Swords. That's just one thing that's kind of coming through there. But I also think with this page that if we are maybe going through where you had lost something, again, this is a great time to just kind of regroup. Like, let's go. Maybe this could be like a treat yourself type of day with this Page of Wands. Like maybe the birds have been scattered, so maybe you need to flee for a little bit, return to your home base, or maybe go somewhere for a little while, so that you can just kind of gather yourself again and really kind of process and integrate what actually just happened in this situation. And because this could be even on the other end. Maybe again, like let's say if this is like a divorce thing, and maybe you were splitting assets, where you may have won something. Sure, like as far as like the case, it may be where you're just like, now how do you process like, okay, I got these things, but like now a relationship is ruined. Like where we used to have such a bond, now now I have to invest my time differently. Where do I go from that? How do I build from that? It's one thing to say like, gosh, I can't wait to get on the other side of this thing. But then when you're on the other side of it, there's that sort of like, oh, a side I think that does sort of miss something or remembers what was. You know, it's interesting. This page is giving me like a longing. In a sense, and that might be something too where we're thinking about money matters. I also think about that as just like where you spend your time and things like that. And I think that this maybe could be where you're investing time and thinking about those good times where things weren't so tough, and and understanding like how relationships can change and how certain situations can change people, but that situation doesn't have to define who they are. You know what I mean? A lot that's coming through here with this page here. That's really fascinating. Now I'm even getting here too. I just be mindful about any sort of like if you have any ideas as far as any kind of money matters, going about them responsibly, of course, not cutting any quarters, cutting any corners or things like that. Especially, let's say if you have a business or something like that, like you may go cheap in the long run, but it just keeps things. I'm just getting an energy of things keeping breaking, and it's just going to affect the team around you. So that's just another thing that's kind of coming through there as well. Hmm. I think that's all I got for that page right now. We'll see. I think it's still some ideas. Some birds are still flocking, so we'll sit on that one for a moment. Let that breathe. But let's go ahead and get into your next card, which talks about any sort of like medical matters or things along those lines. Let's see what's going on, how the body's feeling. Interesting. All right, so you have the two of coins here, and you know what? The body's getting a bit back adjusted to something right now. You know, as far as like maybe you've been just like getting back. This reminds me of like an energy where you've been recovering, and now we're maybe going out for the first run after a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months, or we're integrating motion again, and that tenderness that I think is even because look at this bear. The bears are, you can think of them as grizzly as mighty, but look how it's tending to this little plant here. And that's what I'm really what I'm getting with this two of coins, getting back into the swing of things, but being kind with yourself into it. Having this, you may have this certain expectation, but it just may take a little longer than you think. It reminds me of there's some days where if I've had like maybe months where I remember looking back at like I work with Fitness Blender, and they have these cool little things where you can track in the calendar, and I looked at months where I wasn't moving as much, and then that adjustment period getting back into flexibility, it's like, oh, definitely tighter than I used to be. I used to be able to do this thing, and now, but it's like, okay, I can't force this. This is where I'm at right now, and just meeting yourself where you're at right now is an energy that's kind of coming through here with this two of coins. I'm even getting this thing of needing to maybe even balance how you're taking care of yourself versus maybe where you're putting your time. Maybe if you've been putting a lot into work, making sure to balance it out with enough time of rest as well, because you can't do your best work if there's not any rest. And again, whatever rest looks like for you, or again, maybe motion, or maybe there's something where we're working with the foods that maybe we've been incorporating with. And that might be something too with that Page of Swords. Maybe you've been doing something, having lost in court, because this doesn't have to be just like a legal case. This is just a specific hexagram that tends to deal with legalities. But there could be this thing too of where you had a health thing happen, you were putting off something for a while, and then things got serious, and now we're in this place of where we felt like we lost. We had like the recuperation time is definitely going to take a little bit longer, but it still can get adjusted. But let's get a clarifier on this two of coins here. Let's see what's going on with that. I'm with that. So you got the Six of Cups here, and that's interesting. I think that there's something too here about maybe even doing some sort of like recreation for yourself, doing things that, again, that can make you more time for you. in a sense. And that might be where this Page of Swords is. You know, maybe we've been in this place where it seems like you've just been behind, just can't seem to catch a break. And this could be the time where it's like, you know what, instead of waiting for the opportunities to open up, I'm just going to make an opportunity. This could be where you've been reflecting on sort of past things about how you've been feeling over the last weeks, months, maybe years. And now we're just like, you know, I want to incorporate more of this in my life. I really enjoyed the Six of Cups. This is a really, really lovely card. It's just like, what can you change in order to have more happiness, to feel a more sort of like balanced and kind of fulfilled life? And I think that would really do something for the health as well, you know, for the vitality of the body. So this is a thing to think about there. And too, just thinking about that spares harm from from the town. You know, people start noticing that you have this energy more, and yeah, just it's a ripple effect. You know, that this hexagram really brings as well. And that might be something too, just kind of going back to that Page of Swords again, just like maybe thinking about how you've been investing your time and how the decisions you make just don't affect you, you know, and how they affect those around you as well. That's even something interesting that's kind of coming through. But let's get into your third card here, which talks about any sort of like legal matters and like social affairs and things along those lines. So let's see what's going on with that one. Nice. Interesting. So you have the Lovers here. And the Lovers is a card definitely of a choice that's needing to be made. And again, this might be some sort of court thing. Do I go through with the courts right now? Like, because this could be where maybe you went to go get some advice, some like legal advice, and then you found out like this wouldn't be the ideal time. You haven't necessarily lost, but maybe there was based off of the facts, this wouldn't be, you need more information or something. And so this could be, it's like you can always go forward with whatever you want to do, but this to me, the Lovers, which is Gemini energy, which is giving it like this sense of pause. Gemini is a very clear sign of duality, and it's, you know, it's the twins. And so this to me is like, you always have free will at the end of the day with the Lovers, but this to me is just giving considering other people's opinions, you know, just like in considering the bigger effects that this may have on your situation, your family, your friends, co-workers, pets, all of those things. And really, you know, like I really enjoy this Lovers because this is like a really intimate relationship. You think about the bee and the flower, there's that, and look at this bee all dressed up for this flower. But I do think that it's just thinking about just like, yeah, this just the deeper connections and how these sort of things affect your social affairs and things along those lines. And, you know, this could be like maybe we're making a decision as far as like maybe doing like a zoning thing. Maybe there's something that's going on with neighbors or whatever this might be. But I do think it's just like pay attention to your choices, because, you know, all these choices, there's consequences. And that doesn't have to be a negative kind of like tone to that. It's just what it is. You just have some, you know, every choice we make, yeah, has a reaction to it. I'm even getting to, especially maybe if you've had a period where you've been kind of down on your luck, this could be a choice of going out and doing some sort of like socializing, you know, and things, and maybe just getting some perspective. Again, the waning gibbous can be a sharing period of time, you know, of like sharing what new awareness has come to you, and then maybe someone can bring some new sort of insights into a situation that you've been maybe having troubles balance. So that's something to think about. Now let's get into the next card, which talks about any sort of like relationships, marriage, things along those lines. Ooh, interesting. Did I talk about these two? So you got the Knight of Swords here. And the Knight of Swords is very airy. And I'm just even thinking you got quite a bit of air with the Page of Swords, the Lovers, again, Gemini, and the Knight of Swords. And this gives me maybe a need to be a bit more social. The Knight of Swords can be a little aggressive, but I don't think it's necessarily like going out there and just like us, just like, hey, 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 hey. But more so just like if you've been in like a hermit sort of state, if you've been saying you need to wanting to make more time, then this is the doing of it. Really just kind of not letting something be more, I think, than just an idea with the Knight of Swords. Because I think the Knight of Swords can be very flighty sometimes just because there's so much air that it's dealing with. But I find I think when the Knight of Swords really commits to something, it really benefits, again, not just himself but everyone. And that's what I'm getting here. But again, to maybe just a need to kind of socialize. But the Knight of Swords is a combative one. That is where it can come in. I think of the knights, the Knight of Swords comes in, interestingly, I think the most aggressive of the knights, in my opinion. And so if you've been dealing with some things beneath the surface, just be aware of how that comes out, because that can put a damper, put a sword in between in the relationships. There's even something really aggressive about this bird. Just not the blue jay, the bird that it's riding, but it's something's there with that. Like it's just really kind of off-putting. So I think that there's just something there where maybe you need to give, again, if you know you've been in this energy, give yourself some space, and maybe just communicating that as well. That might be something too there. Maybe trying to stay in the state of control and things, but yeah, so that's something I would just keep eyes on if that's been a theme that's been coming up for you at all. Now let's get into your fifth card here, which talks about any sort of like immediately pressing affairs. Let's see what's coming up in the now. Interesting. And I'm with so you got the Knight of Coins here. And this definitely, so we went from the fastest knight to the slowest knight. Oh, and look at it, he even wanted to take a nap. The Knight of Coins is one that definitely gives me an energy of just like pacing yourself, just really kind of slowing down, getting back grounded again, and whatever that looks like for you. Something that, and this to me too, this is giving me that whatever is needing to take your mind, it may be like an immediate thing that's on your mind, but we need to go about it methodically. This is not something that you need to rush. So give yourself that ample time so you don't have to come in maybe Nine of Swords, where it's like you're looking for maybe advice really fast or making some sort of like quick decisions here, and then have a lot of mess where something that could have been maybe dealt with more in the immediate now is extended a little bit. So that's an energy that this Knight of Coins is giving me as well. Yeah, slow and steady. Take it slow right now. Whatever that may be looking like for you, just maybe over this next couple days in Sag, it might be, again, even though Sag is an active energy, there could be this activity can maybe just happening more internally right now. We're just kind of readjusting how we're distributing this fire, in a sense. Let's get into your last card, which talks about the destiny or the karma of the situation. And I think it's going to be important too, considering that you got the Lovers. Let's see what's going on with that. So you have the Seven of Coins here. And this to me, it's like we're looking at how a situation has gone, and now we're just sort of like in this, it's like maybe you're just like kind of in the I got a message of the suck of it right now, where it's like you having lost or something, or maybe in this rut, and now we're just sort of like, okay, I kind of got to wait for this thing to blow over. I got to wait for certain things to move, certain things to, whatever that might look like. This could be, Yeah, the examples are escaping me at the moment, but it's whatever is going on or whatever guidance that I think that you're seeking for in this time, that this is one where you really just want to kind of take it slow. And again, think about the bigger, and that's appropriate for Sag. Thinking about the bigger picture of how this maybe decisions that we're making, is this thing, maybe even this like, is something worth your time, worth investing in? Is this like really producing the results that you've expected to? Because this seven of coins can give me where if we go the Knight of Wands and press, or excuse me, the Knight of Swords, and we even Page of Swords and press something here, then it's just gonna prolong something, drag the suffering out maybe a little bit more than what is necessary. But this is giving me like things will come back into, it's of course like, like it always does, things will come back into to a flow. But right now it feels like there's been some sort of like reset that's been happening, some sort of like something that jarred, and now it's just like, now the situation is trying to just kind of correct itself in a way, is what this energy is kind of giving me here. So all right, let's get some advice from Big Papa. Oh, interesting. Wow. All right, so you got the Six of Cups again, and let's go ahead and switch over. Cause look at this whale kind of reflecting back on this past these past photos and things. And to me, something happened that has changed up. And again, with these photos here, maybe there's been some sort of like breakup that's happening. This is the energy I was talking about, where it's like you may have won something, but I think something was also lost at the same time. And now maybe that Seven of Coins is just like we're kind of processing this, and the Six of Cups is, yeah, really being in that feeling. But I don't think it's not an energy of just staying stuck, of course, with the Six of Cups. I do think that this is where there's wisdom that can come from this situation, maybe this loss that maybe has happened in the metaphorical court in a way. And I am getting this energy of kind of like a returning to source, to kind of seeking counsel right now. Like, as far as like, what if you feel like you're kind of stuck between a past and a present sort of energy, and that's kind of got the future a little murky. We're just kind of waiting for things to make some sort of sense. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Interesting, but I'm just even noticing, other than the energy of Sagittarius, there's no fire here right now. We got the mind is active, and I think the material and the emotions are just kind of catching up with that. And reflect on what you've learned from the Six of Cups, and these feelings that may have come up. Like which ones. There's just something there with that as well. Man, I think that's all I got for you there. A little something to meditate on. This is an interesting reading. But if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody who can get some nuggets. Oh, you're just not going to do it. It just chooses when it wants to. And share this if you know somebody who get any nuggets of wisdom from this. And subscribe there, you Page of Swords. Hit that bell button to get notified when I release videos each day. And then I'm going to get your surprise card of cards here. But if you want to know what's going on with the other celestial bodies and what signs they're transiting through and how to work with those energies, in the description box is a link for my other channel, Alchemist 8, where I release videos every Mercury day, that's a Wednesday, talking about just that and yeah, how to work with those planets. And then I'm also doing these series. I don't have any specific days that I release them, but I've been trying to do them daily. I've had a lot of stuff coming up here recently that I had to take care of. But yeah, they're usually released. There should be some more coming out here soon. But I have playlists of different planets and different signs and different houses, and just my thoughts on them and just some things to think about how to maybe work with those energies or. Okay. Okay. That's all. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise cards here. Oh, love it. So there's that fire. You literally got the fire card here, and you got the Weaver card. And I like that this fire came up at the end, because I think that this situation over this next, before we figure out where we're going to take the will out, and as far as like how we're going to go forward on a situation, I do think that there is this need again to reflect on what's happening, and then what are you creating, with this going forward? How are we going to weave these with this new information, these new feelings, these new resources, whatever that's looking like? How do we work with that? And see how this heart has all these kind of like burnt matches at the kind of surrounding it there. This to me seems like it's not going to be something where it's going to be like going to try some things that's just like, man, keeps going out, like a breeze keeps coming through, the wind, the Knight of Swords, Page of Swords energy keeps coming through, that's getting in the way of the fire. But I think things are going to start cooking soon. If you've been feeling maybe a bit stuck, especially with that 7 of coins right now. But this, I would say, is not a time to force something. That's just what I'm getting with this fire, because otherwise you're just going to end up with a bunch of burnt matches and just a lot of weight, a lot of expended energy. You know what I mean? So utilizing that more constructively, more concentrated, I think with this Weaver card is just something to just to consider. Maybe going forward over these next couple days while we're in this moon in Sag energy. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you there. So until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon, because man, she's busy. And I will catch you on the next one, Venus Day.